Welcome back again to the Unlearning Curve, where we like to talk about crunchy facts in life, like politics, religion, mental health, and whatever else is on our mind as well, too. And we are in our fourth session, so this is when our brains have probably gone to mush, but we are still here. JD has now been up for way too many hours, as he should be. So yes, we're joined again by JD Forehand, Karl the Great, and I am Stuart Delony. In session 4, we're going to be talking about, I don't know, is it going to get a little hot in here, JD? We're going to turn up the Fahrenheit, even though you were only about Celsius right now.
I mean, I usually work in Celsius now, but we might turn up the Fahrenheit to 451.
What?
That's the temperature at which paper burns, which is not accurate. It burns pretty early from that. But have either of you read Fahrenheit 451?
It's been a while, but yes, I've read it. Yeah.
What are your Curvonic? What are your kind of feelings from reading it?
No, I loved it. It was this dystopian future, censorship, and yes, books are banned, and yeah, it's kind of like where we're almost going right now as well too, because I feel like we have people in charge that don't like reading. But
that's kind of. Go ahead.
Watched and read The Handmaid's Tale, and then
they're basically the exact same.
Testaments. I mean, the Testaments is what's going on now. But
maybe it would help, Karl. It's also based on a book called I think it's Celsius 232. If we're translating it,
that's the modern translation.
It is
same thing.
Yeah.
You guys are American, so it's all right. You can keep it Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
The Handmaid's Tale is pretty great. I had to read that to help my ex-girlfriend write her master's thesis. So that was it was good for me to do that. But anyway, go back to what Stuart was saying. I do think that we are kind of headed towards Fahrenheit 451, and I don't even mean in the extreme case of like we're going to be burning books. Like, obviously there's like the whole thing with like book banning and like things like that. We've talked about on that on here before. But like my thing is just the way that we start distracting ourselves. Because I think that's kind of an undertone of what the whole thing is. It doesn't just start with book burning. Because I think even people who haven't read Fahrenheit 451, they know it's about like, oh, it's about burning books. But the whole undertone of that book, I believe, is like it starts with you're just distracting yourself, and people don't want to engage with it so much, and it's tough. And like, I was talking about one of my friends is a professor at a community college in the U.S., and we were talking about recently. He was just saying like how like poorly read a lot of his students are, and I read some studies recently that him and I were discussing that show like the average person like getting to college now has not even read a full book. Like their whole life, they have not read through a book, which is crazy. I read through a book today. I read Alice in Wonderland today, front to cover, like in like 3 hours, and being distracted by students the whole time. Like, I cannot stress how much I think like people have to just read. Like, you have to read, and here's the thing. How can I say this? If you're worried about the price of books, there are ways you can get books for free. Let's just say that. You can contact me if you need to, because it's the same thing with scholarly articles. Like, people who are like, I'm going to do my own research, what they mean is like, I'm going to go read Fox News. Like, if you want to do your own research and you're like, oh, shit, like, I'm on Google Scholar and the article I want to read is like paywalled, allegedly, I can show you how to like not be paywalled anymore. Obviously in Minecraft, blah blah blah, but like there are ways to get the information that you want, because like you have to like educate yourself. But anyway, I think that's kind of where like what sparked my curiosity with like this whole topic. And then also my mom, Karl the Great wife, was also asking me about ERP recently, which ERP is exposure and response prevention, which is a kind of like cognitive behavioral therapy. And I think they connect with one another, because I think the Fahrenheit 451 book talks about like this kind of like we're distancing ourselves from like, again, I talked about it in the last session as well. This idea of like, it gives us anxiety, right? To like engage to such a degree or to like actually think about things. And so we escape, and what that does is it reinforces how we feel, right? Like if you feel like you're being like, one of the big things with like OCD is like contagion. And so if you feel like, oh, I'm getting some contagion from like touching a doorknob or something. Well, one way you can make yourself feel better is like washing your hands excessively or whatever. And so that allows you to distance yourself from that and make yourself feel better, and it reinforces the behavior. Mm-hmm. So I think it's the same thing here. Instead of, if you feel socially anxious, you put in your headphones, you put in your iPod, not iPods, Jesus. What are they called? What are the headphones called? AirPods, thank you. Sorry. I'm a dinosaur. Like those kind of things. You're just distancing yourself from it, and it makes you feel better because you don't have to deal with the anxiety. And I think that's bad, and that's why I think people should, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, engage in these kind of like exposure therapy exercises. And ERP is one of those specific exposure therapies. And now I'm talking too much, but anyway.
No, so like talk about like how like what would ERP look like in a practical sense? Like how would you walk through somebody that is doing this type of therapy? What does it look like?
I mean, the easiest way is just to like, basically you need, of course, first, like with any kind of this kind of exposure therapy, you need to work through basic ideas of like what's triggering you, and then how can you push yourself to be, because exposure therapy is like you have to be in the situations that trigger you, for lack of a better word, like the things that make you upset. You have to live in them, but do it in a way that allows you to like work through them. So one of the big things is creating, like, for like phobias, we talk about creating like a fear hierarchy, or it could be like an anxiety hierarchy. But you basically create like this list of things that's like, okay, this is like moderately anxiety driving for me. This is like extremely anxiety. And then you work through that. And there's, again, I have like copious notes on here and like literature that I can share with people. We could put it in the show notes or whatever if we want to. But and you can find it like freely available online. But you have to start like working through those things that give you trauma or mess you up. And you work through them, again, from the easiest to the most difficult. But you have, like, I think it's really important that we actually start working through those things, as opposed to just like, I feel anxious, and so I'm just going to get on AI and have it tell me exactly what I want to hear, or I'm going to get on Instagram and just scroll mindlessly. And honestly, in a lot of cases, just like fuel my anxiety even more. But yeah, like the basic is like, okay, think about the things that give you anxiety, and then you have to start pushing yourself into those situations. That's basically how you do it, if you want like a very bare bones idea of it.
So don't somatic therapies kind of go in that direction? It's, what do I feel when I'm in that trigger situation? And so now I'm visiting that somatically, and I can process through it, but you can't do it without feeling it. You have to experience, it's that you're actually doing the thing again. It's just that you got to experience it internally, and then what do we do with that? If that wasn't true, what else would be true? And those kind of things is the response. My one warning about that, the mistake that I made, was you can't expose other people to the things they struggle with or are triggered by.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The people in your life, you don't want to push them into the things they're afraid of.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can give you a real example, certain things that Laura was triggered by, and I would push, but then her response is flight and mine's fight. So it doesn't end up in anything healing.
Yeah.
It's got to be her choice. She realizes this, and now and I have a question also. Could it be that it's about communication more than anything, whether that's internal communication or if it's between a husband and wife and so on, or so a relationship like that? Is it really about stopping when we're triggered, regulating, and saying, okay, what's true about this? What would be a better response? And how can I cultivate that?
I have like seven things I want to say about that, so I'm going to get sidetracked at some point, so forgive me for that. But like, the first thing is about somatic therapy. I think that's a very useful thing, and I think that can lead you into things like ERP or exposure, like broadly speaking, exposure therapy, which I think maybe those things could lead into each other, and that would be good. But I do think that somatic therapy, in terms of just like doing kind of like imaginary experiences, is not enough in certain cases. Maybe for some cases it is, but I think for a lot of cases it isn't, both based on what I've read in the literature and also like what I've experienced anecdotally, which anecdotal evidence is anecdotal evidence, so it is what it is. But for certain people it doesn't work. For certain people it might. That might be enough for certain people. What I was actually going to say when you were talking about that example is the most important thing in terms of that, when you're trying to push other people, because I was initially just talking about myself. If you're trying to push other people into it, yeah, communication in relationship is the most important thing, because I talked with one of my students recently about this. They had reached out to me and they were like complaining about something. And I don't think I was like overly, and I'm obviously super biased in favor of myself because I'm a great guy. But I like started giving advice right away. And when we got to the end, the student like basically agreed with me. But then I was like, man, I'm sorry. Like, I shouldn't have just like been trying to push you in that direction. Like, and then like in the future, like, I'll try to be better about this, but also like feel free to like just say like, hey, I don't want you to like try to push me in the right direction. I just want to like complain about stuff. Like that student was just trying to get something off their chest, and I was just trying to find the solution right away. And I think that's part of it, because that may have been the solution for mom, but you have to listen. Sometimes it depends on the person. Sometimes the person is literally just looking for like actually a solution. But you have to kind of like find that middle ground first and figure out what they want. Because sometimes they just need something to complain about. But yeah, anyway, again, I have 9 other things to say. But that I would say, yes, of course, when it comes to like between people, whatever your relationship is, close or not, like, yeah, you need to have that communication, because you need to be able to tell the person, like, and that was part of the issue is like, he has a lot of, I was trying to be gender neutral because I didn't want to give any details away, but I fucked that up. He was trying to like basically be open with me, but he also has like a lot of bad relationships with people that are like his friends and family. And so he's trying to vent to someone who he feels like he can vent to, which obviously he can, but he didn't, at the time, he didn't need someone to tell him like, hey, this is how you get there. Now, today, a couple weeks later, we've been working on actually things like this, where it's like, okay, this shit is your trigger, push yourself into that. And now that student is trying to do that and is working through that stuff. But yeah, you can't just like, I'm not telling people to like, just like be like, okay, you should just go expose yourself to this stuff. No, absolutely not. That's not the answer.
I think too, Karl, like to hop off of that too, with you were saying, is this about communication? I think on some levels it is. I think it's about being able, like you're talking about with Laura as well. Like one thing I've had to learn with communication, like with my wife as well, is like, honey, are you venting or are you asking me to fix it? And kind of knowing those two different things. But I think when we're dealing with this, it's also communication with the self, which I think is a lot harder sometimes, because I think like a lot of anxiety is around like your body's nervous system saying, I don't feel safe. And so I think some of it is being able to get, it's being able to get, to that, to be able to communicate that. But as someone has had like inner child that is freaked out in lots of situations from trauma and stuff from childhood, my inner child is oftentimes kind of pushed back in a sort of sense of saying, prove it. Like, I can say it's safe, but it's like, prove it. I need to see that this is going to be consistently safe. And I think also when we're talking about exposure therapy, my last thought of this was just that permission is huge for folks, because you can easily be like, oh, I'm going to help my friend who's afraid of spiders. Here's some spiders. You know, that would be insane. Because, I mean, that was, I mean, I remember this, like, when I was like a little kid trying to, my first swim lesson, that I didn't want to get in the water. So the teacher's answer for doing it is pick me up and throw me into the pool. Yay. So, you know, so permission does matter, and because otherwise it can create more phobias and more problems with this. But JD, are you also kind of getting at the point of like, the things that we avoid or are afraid of, they'll end up owning us? Is that some of it? Like, if we don't deal with these things, they'll end up owning us, and we're not then fully ourselves anymore.
They definitely can't be. But one thing I wanted to talk about before that, like working off your point, the idea of like this kind of like consent, which I think goes back to the idea of like conversation and communication, is like, it's super necessary. The other thing with like not almost any type of therapy, if you want it to work, the person who you're putting through the therapy, whether it's yourself or whether it's another person, has to want to go through that. If they don't want to go through that, it's going to either be a neutral thing or it's going to be a negative thing, which makes the problem even worse. And sorry, I'm like, my brain is going in a lot of different directions. What was your actual question?
The last one I was saying, are you kind of getting to the point of saying that like these things that hold us back, the things that we avoid end up owning us? Yeah. If we don't deal with them.
For sure. Because I think like that's kind of how like, I think that's like how fears work, is like they kind of control you because they don't allow you into a lot of spaces in your life. Like I have students that are like super creative, but they have phobias of like whatever it is, like, or maybe not phobias like diagnosable phobias, but like, you know, parlance speaking, like they have like worries about like public speaking or certain other things. Try not to be too specific about my students right now. But yeah, absolutely. They can control us, and I think they limit us, and they hold us back from a lot of stuff that like we could be doing. Like I have kids that are phenomenally talented, but because of even sometimes fears that are like not connected to the issue at hand, right? Whether it's like writing or public speaking or whatever, like they have something that's tangentially connected, and so they just can't do it at the time. But if you can again build that relationship with them and then show them, listen, because the big thing is like whether it's something like ERP or whether it's just like general exposure therapy or whatever, the idea is like these cognitive behavioral therapies, they work on like your thinking and the way that you like do cognition, obviously, which is the C in CBT. And so if you can change people's cognition, you can change the way that they interact with all these things. But yeah, like it takes time, and you have to build the relationship first. Otherwise, you're just screwed. There's nothing to it.
I used to tell the kids, I don't know if JD remembers this, but I said nothing gets better by ignoring it. Trash doesn't take itself out. You know, especially with trauma, Laura and I always say, if you ignore it, it's going to come back, and it comes out sideways. Right? And we can't explain it. Where's that coming from? And what, you know, and it might be better to ask what happened to you, not what's wrong with you. Yeah. You know, but it just never gets better. It's still trying to resolve itself, right? It's unresolved. It's something unresolved, right? And if you got that dysfunction or trauma or whatever from childhood, it's trying to resolve itself in a childlike way. I find helpful is, you know, to look at that part of me, and I don't, you know, inner child, I don't know, labels you want to put on it, but just to say, I'm older now, right? And if that's not true, what's really true? And I can better support you now. That's how it works in my mind. I got
think
you. I got you. That part of me that's immature and can't resolve it, I can help you. And it's not resolved immediately, like JD said.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have to work through this and communicate with people in my life and things like that. But
Mhm.
anyway, go ahead.
Just my point is that I think part of this, like ERP exposure therapy, is like partially for me, but I think part of it is like I think I tend towards your kind of personality where like I just tend to like
I'm
grit my
sorry.
teeth and like just power through it and just be like, but I'm just gonna like sometimes even it's just like when I whether it's external forces telling me I can't do it or that like something blah blah blah, or whether it's myself, I'm just like, yeah, no, fuck you. Like I'm gonna fucking do it. But I have the thing is I have my mom and also a bunch of students that I have that are they have a very different way of thinking. And I don't think it's definitely not worse. It's just a different way of like experiencing the world. And sometimes I would argue it's better because it's like more thoughtful and it's more tender. But like this is like partially for like me to think about like how to like push them in a gentle way. But yeah, like because I've done this with a bunch of kids where I am, but again, you have to build that relationship. You have to teach them like, listen, this is not like to like just like throw you into the deep end, like Stuart was saying, like that's not what it is. It's literally like I will guide you there, and I'm not a clinician, so like I hope you would go like seek out like actual psychiatrists or something. But like barring that, because that's fucking super hard, especially like with you guys in the US, like it's for a lot of people it's cost prohibitive.
Mm-hmm.
We can build this relationship and I can figure out where roughly you can't I can't exceed this, but like just try a little bit of this, try whether it's like being socially awkward or whatever, like just go out in the social situation, and if it's too much, I am a safe haven. Come back to me, we'll pull ourselves out of the social gathering, and we'll just go hang out, we'll debrief, we'll talk about it, and then we can go back in if you feel like it and try again, or we can just leave. But like it's about like pushing people into these situations because like at some point for a lot of people you have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, like a lot of people can't work through these things. And I mean it's true for me too, but like I don't know, like for me it's a little bit easier to push myself into these things because like I just make myself do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like I think a lot of people they need more of a support, which is again what ERP like or and exposure therapy more broadly is based on. It's based on like you build a rapport with your psychologist, your psychiatrist, and then they're supporting you, they're teaching you these techniques. And again, also you're teaching things like coping mechanisms, like okay, and also listening to your body. Listen to when you start feeling like this makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay, boom, that's perfect. Take that and then okay, now we apply the coping mechanisms, whatever it's like, breathing techniques, meditation, whatever it is. But like that's the whole picture. And I think those kind of things, it sounds simple and like I think it is relatively simple, but like those are things that like we lose, and especially I think part of it is we lose them. And again, I'm going off on like 7 different tangents right now, but like I think we lose a lot of it because we have on like our social media platforms, we have the language of mental health, but we don't have the techniques of mental health. We
Mm-hmm.
have the oh, you're triggering me or whatever, but we don't have the okay, how do I deal with that? Like, and it frustrates me to no end as like a psychology teacher because like you're just I see people that are just like the new trend is like cortisol levels. Oh, cortisol super high, and it's like, do you know what cortisol is? Do you know why it gets triggered? And also, do you know how to deal with it when it does fluctuate? Because like cortisol is a real thing that does stress us. It's like literally the stress hormone. Like, okay, so what do we do about it? But it's not. There's nothing about that. It's just like, oh, it's like a cute buzzword that we can use to get more likes, and that shit pisses me the fuck off. But anyway, sorry for ranting.
No, I love the way that you're also. Like, I think you're also framing this as there's a difference between how we handle these situations, like together, like with another human, like in real
Yeah,
space, versus how
yeah,
like we deal with stuff on social media, algorithm wise, and how it affects our brain. Also, like
yeah,
you're talking about
yeah,
being with a person that's afraid, but you're there not holding their hand, but you're there. I'm going to be there to debrief with you. I'm
yeah,
going to be there just to talk, to breathe, to exist in the same space,
yeah.
and all these, like, I mean, having like issues with unresolved nervous systems is really, I feel like, what the algorithms feed and profit off of as well, too. So it's like even like pushing the thumb further on us to isolate us more, to manipulate us more based upon this problem we have, and that we wouldn't have that. And there's less competing things if we're actually just with another person out in public.
Yeah.
And not just with all of this other information that is just constantly being tossed at us.
Yeah, and that's, again, I mean, I'm always preaching getting off social media. Maybe not entirely, but to some degree, and developing those relationships. And if you do want to be on social media, have a fucking accountability buddy, to use the language of the church. Like, just get someone that, like, will actually, like, whether it's, I mean, I think, like, when you're actually with each other, I think it's easier. But even if that's like, hey, we're going to do a fucking, like, FaceTime or whatever, like, I think that's also good. But it has to be that. And it has to be, like, and it's hard. Oh, my goodness, man. Like, there's a couple students I've spent years trying to get that. I'm just like, listen, just FaceTime me. Like, when you're having like a mental health issue, when you're breaking down, whatever, like, just call me, FaceTime me, whatever. Like, most of the time I'll be available. There will be times where maybe I fell asleep because I work 70 hours, 80 hours a week. But, like, usually I will answer your call. And when they start to realize that, then it does get better. But, like, that's what it is. It's about community. It's about accountability and just connecting with people. But yeah, this, like, language of, like, you know, oh, like, just, like, do this, manifest, or, like, all this, like, kind of, like, pseudo psychological bullshit that goes on social media it's fucking horseshit. And it drives me crazy. Because, I mean, because I have, like, this is kind of another tangent, but, like, because I have, like, an interest in psychology, like, I noticed my algorithm trying to offer me, like, psychological, like, news on, like, my Google News feed. But it's all just, like, 7 reasons why, like, people who are quieter are, like, actually super intelligent. It's like, this isn't fucking science. Like, this isn't psychology. Like, it just drives me crazy. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm really ranting.
No, I love
but
it. There's this thing, like, I saw this, and it may be useful. When I read about this, but I just laughed. But it's a browser extension that you can get that, and you can say, like, you can program it to where if you've been doom scrolling for whatever period of time, it's called the cat gatekeeper. I just looked up. It's a fat, chonky cat, walks out onto the screen and lays down, and I think it does it for 5 straight minutes, and you can't see anything else. So I think you just have to wait.
It's so funny that you said that.
Yeah.
One of my students showed me that this week.
I don't know if it works, but I like the idea. I was like, I mean, if anything, a fat cat will, like, make you laugh and realize.
I'm in favor of that. Whatever gets people off fucking scrolling. Like, my god, dude.
So what role does regulation play in this? Because
a huge factor, because that's what it's like. That's basically what it's all about, is putting yourself into increasingly, like, stressful situations. But obviously the other thing is, like, I want people, because I haven't, like, gone through all the details of this, because, like, I keep going off on tangents, but, like, basically what, again, like, you go through a hierarchy of, like, okay, this is like a 1 on the scale, this is a 10, or, you know, it's arbitrary, but, like, we move up the scale, and you have to work through the first one. At least it depends on, like, the way you do it, but, like, you work through, like, a good amount of it, like, up to, like, 60%, then you move on to the next one. But through the whole thing, like, it is about, like, using things like coping mechanisms. Like, you're trying to engage with these situations, notice when it kind of makes you feel uncomfortable, however it affects you negatively. You're noticing that, and then you're coping with it in whatever way that, like, works for you, whether it's, again, breathing techniques, whatever. But that's, like, a main tenet of this whole ideology, is, like, you have to have ways to calm yourself down, because that's the only way you can get through that. Is, like, you can't just, like, it's not about just, like, going in and, like, triggering yourself and, like, getting, like, super amped up and, like, doing that over and over again, because that's not gonna, all that's gonna do is give you high blood pressure. It's about going in and learning how to, like, listen, because, again, this is also what CBT does for people, is you go in and you learn, like, I feel like I'm going to die in this situation. and then you realize, usually through a therapist or through like the way that you work through stuff, no, actually it's okay. Like, I've been hurt in this way, which makes me associate this with this. But no, actually, like, this situation is not the same thing. No one's hurting me. I'm just associating things. I've been, through classical conditioning or whatever, like, I've been associating this with this. And so I feel stressed out. And that's not to say that's invalid, but it's just to say that, like, there isn't actually a connection there, and you're not actually in danger. Your fight or flight response may be kicking off, but you can train it not to kick off in those situations. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so you're talking about cognitive therapies, changing the way we think. You can't do that when your front part of your brain's offline, right? So the somatic and other types of therapies are not cognitive therapies. They're working with feelings, so you need a guide. You need a therapist, or I believe sometimes a book, music, or something that gets past your watchful dragons is what I call them. And it can happen somatically. And I like to talk about somatic stuff, but we got to regulate before we start trying to solve. You can't solve problems when you're dysregulated.
Mm-hmm. I think it's all the above, though. I think, and the other thing is, I think it's subjective, because it's just my biggest suggestion to people is learn about what is causing you to feel uncomfortable, whether that's angry or nervous or sad or whatever. Learn what those things are. Learn to understand your body. You talk about this all the time. Learn to understand what's making you feel those kind of feelings, whatever they are. Then try different stuff. Like, try things. Like, for me, I mean, a lot of it is just like thinking through stuff, books, reading books, listening to speakers and stuff like that, and then just like going into situations. And I mean, part of it is like I kind of just push through, but like, whatever it is, try stuff, experiment. But yeah, you can't, if you're just going in and like getting like, you're freaking out with stuff, you're not going to get better. 100%. You're exactly right about that.
I want to give an example. JD, you know this. During my stroke and trying to recover from that, I had some mental breakthroughs in there. And one time was when JD, I guess Laura called JD, and he got on the phone, and I was literally having a meltdown. I mean, I was weeping, and it was touching something deep inside of me, and I was trying to resolve that. And JD was just there with me. I don't remember him giving me any advice. He was just kind of validating what I was feeling. And that was, one piece of my healing, where it really helped to have somebody else there with me. Otherwise, I was headed into fight mode, I got to fight this. Yeah. But I felt it. And so that's the somatic side, but then there's cognitive repair and all the things you're talking about. I think all of that, you're right. We need all of it.
Well, I have a few students that are the same way. Like and they're not always good about doing this, but they're getting better about it as they like learn to trust me and other people that are like kind of like their anchors and supports. Like, I'm just like, you have to reach out to someone, because one of the things I tell students all the time is don't suffer in silence, because they will, and me too, like 100% me too. And I tell them this all the time, like, I will do the same thing, but you cannot suffer in silence, because you will, if you do not reach out to someone else, like all of us, just like I tell especially this, it's interesting because the students that are this way are also the most creative kids I know. I go, listen, you have a fucking really creative brain. And so when you're in a negative mood, when you're depressed, or when you're, feeling negative, you will recess into yourself, and you will think of the most creative ways that the future is going to fuck you over. I don't use necessarily these words with my students,
but creative ways of avoiding facing it too, right?
Certainly, absolutely, both those things. But they will just think of like everyone hates me in the world. I'm like, you're one of the nicest, like, sweetest, most creative, interesting people. why would anyone think that? But it's just like our brains are fucking masterful tools of like, you know, creating blades with which we can fucking cut ourselves apart sometimes. But anyway, point being is like, I'm just like, just reach out. And what they will slowly find as they occasionally do that, especially in the beginning, when, you know, a student or a former, most of the time it's a former student, but a former student will call me in the middle of the night, listen, like, I mean, some kids will call me and be like, bro, like, I'm like about to self-harm. And it's like, that's a fucking heavy call to get, but it's just like, it really doesn't take much. This is the thing for people who are like, for lack of a better word, like allies. I don't like that word that much, but like people who are like there for other people when they need it, like it doesn't take much. Like you don't have to be some fucking like psychologist. I'm not a fucking psychologist. You just listen and you talk them through that. And then a lot of times they'll like figure it out on their own, but you just go like, why are you feeling that? And then you reassure them like, no, of course you're not, whatever. Like I have people in my life that have body dysmorphia and stuff. It's like, no, you're fucking gorgeous. You're a handsome guy, whatever it is. Like point being is like, all you have to do is talk to people. And on both sides, it improves most of the time. There's obviously caveats to that, but like, I don't know. I think, yeah, kind of going back to the original point way earlier, like a lot of it is just building community and being there for people and not just thinking like, you don't have to have there's no answer because everything, again, like I think I said this earlier, like it's subjective. Everyone's problems and everyone's solutions are going to fit themselves. So why not play around with how we talk about things and also like the different kind of approaches we use. That's why like I'm not saying like ERP is like the answer for everyone, but it's one of the possible answers, and it could be a tool in the toolkit of like all the answers that works for you. But I think experimentation and openness, and then again community and connection is like the biggest stuff. But I think that's another thing, and again I'm going to get off on another tangent. I think looking for the magic bullet is something that our society has gotten so used to, whether it's for health or whatever. Like, oh, if I take this garlic pill, I'll just like I won't have any like sort of health issues. Or if I blah, 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 blah. That's not how it works. You have to understand your own situation, and to understand that sometimes you have to like actually disconnect. And this is another thing with Fahrenheit 451 that they talk about all the time. This is a little thing I want to say. They talk about putting the seashells in your ears, which is these like basically AirPod things. And I think sometimes we have to take those things out and just listen to ourselves, listen to our bodies, listen to the people around us, and then just kind of be who you are, be where you are, be at peace kind of shit. And then actually like respond to that, as opposed to like listening to these voices, these disparate voices from all around us that are telling us, oh, this is the solution. This is the solution. Oh, the New York Times says this. Oh, the Washington Post says this. Like, sure, those things could be useful. But the most important thing is like practice, right? Put it into practice, test all things and think and find out what is good. Keep what is good. Try it. And does it work for you? Does it make you feel better? If it does, continue that. If it doesn't, then fucking toss it aside. Like it's rubbish.
Good, man.
Sorry, I'm going to keep running.
I like it because I think that you were mentioning the one thing I was connecting, because once you said like suffering in silence, I don't think we ever really suffer in silence. I think we're quiet, but our brains are very loud.
Yeah.
But because I think this does come back to silence, like the idea of pulling the seashells out, or for people to be able to get off their phones, to stop doom scrolling, to do something. Because I think that if we can just even have a moment like of silence, a moment to step away, because I think that will inform us that we're running from something. That we have something that's unresolved, that we keep going because we're afraid if we stop, that whatever's coming in front of us, we're going to be forced to deal with it. And I think sometimes being able to stop and sit in silence, and like what you're saying, Karl, like being like somatic and like, where's my body? What is happening? Why is my blood pressure going up? What is going on here? What's real? What's not real? But I think being able to sit in silence, and sometimes it's difficult and it's hard and it's painful, and your body just wants you to just go back to scrolling because it just feeds it. Go back to feeding our brain so we don't have to feel this. But it's hard.
I'm loving this new phrase that my friend taught me. If that were not true, what else might be true?
Mm.
When someone has, the misguided impression of themselves. What if that was? You have to be regulated to do this, right? But what if that were not true? What else might be true?
Mm.
And like JD said, I don't want the coach approach to, just believe the right things and do the right things, and then that coach talk, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but just kind of those honest questions are good.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Well, I think to Stuart's point, like I think we have to, and to something that like is like one thing that I try to push people, and I think I've already talked about this. Like we do have to like sometimes actually like sit in silence. Like we have to get off those things. And again, it's tough, and like again, like Stuart said, like it's painful sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes we need that. And I'm not like the whole like, pain is weakness leaving the body type shit. Because like sometimes pain is just pain. But if we can disconnect from like the constant like dopamine, serotonin boost, norepinephrine, like these just constant these neurotransmitters that we can release by just like watching colorful videos on our phone. If we can kind of put that aside and actually like experience, because it's not, I mean, again, this is not to like justify like bad, like horrible stuff, but like sometimes like I will like, and sometimes I use my phone to do it, honestly, but like there will be times when it's just like, man, I'm like listening to my body. It's like, man, you need to have a good cry, And so I'll just I'll like go like look up like like spoken word poetry, like emotional, like or I'll listen to like songs that I know will like make me cry, and I turn off like all notifications and I just listen to that shit and I just fucking cry, and then I just put my phone away. I have to go charge it, and then I just deal with that. I kind of like listen to myself. Okay, why did I need that cry? Blah blah blah. Like I think that's also useful. And again, we can use the technology to like help us get to where we need to get to, but you first have to like turn it off.
Yeah.
Sit in silence, not suffer in silence. Sit in silence, and sometimes that requires like asking other people, so that's not exactly silence. Maybe sit in solidarity. I don't know. We can come up with a bunch of like pastoral phrases if we want to, but point being is you have to understand what it is first, right? And then get to that point. But like you do have to you have to like actually process things as opposed to just like fucking hit the next like magenta colored like dopamine hit on the fucking TikTok or Instagram or whatever. Like it is not healthy. Like
Stuart's
What does that even mean?
He's beautiful to me too. I think that's what you're trying to
gives
say.
me the dopamine hit I need, especially with his background. His
Oh, now it was almost a compliment. Now you're just talking about my background. You just use me for my background.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say his. I thought you were going to say his backside. I thought this was going back to the flashing story that I walked in on with you and
My
you
glory.
guys and Bob.
That's right. That was quite a story to walk in on.
You have to go back and listen to that. Good job, JD.
Oh God! All right, I'm going to stop ranting. I'm done.